And now, Be Insured with Luke Mardigan, presented by Farm Bureau Insurance.
Hello, and thank you for listening. My name is Luke Mardigan, and you are listening to Be Insured, a show where we discuss a variety of topics related to insurance. So if you need to take a nap at a red light, then we're the perfect show. Just kidding. This is going to be awesome today, especially for our business owners. Business and leadership. We talk about things that you can use to protect your thriving business. So we all know that the world of insurance can be confusing and sometimes boring, but it's hard to navigate it as a business owner. You already have enough to think about as being HR and being your own accountant and running day-to-day operations. Not to mention there's types of coverages that you don't really know what they are, and you're trying to figure out exactly what you need. So to all the business owners out there listening right now, I want to ask you these questions. Is my equipment covered when it leaves my place of work and comes with me to a job site? Am I protected should an employee try to sue me? Does my current coverage comply with all state laws? Or how about this one? Am I protected in the event of a cyber attack? If you found yourself scratching your head at any of these questions, you got to listen, because today we're going to talk about the most critical insurance that your business must have. And I'm joined by an excellent panel of guests here, and they are
Greg Hogsett, Mardigian Agency, Farm Bureau Insurance.
Eric Gestring, the Mardigian Agency, Farm Bureau.
Carlos Vera with the Mardigian Agency, Farm Bureau Insurance.
That's right. We got the whole Mardigian Agency crew here. Every agent in our team is sitting at this table ready to talk to you guys about your business. So Carlos is not only an agent with us, but he actually is a part owner in a restaurant here locally. And so I felt like this was the perfect topic for him. Carlos, how vulnerable do coverage gaps make a business? Like, can it really be that bad? Is it really that big of a deal?
Of course. I mean, it can make a huge impact in your business. We reviewed a current policy for a restaurant that my family owns, Cancun Mexican Grill, and we realized that the business personal property, we only had $50,000 in coverage. I mean, that can't even replace a quarter of the stuff we have in there.
Right.
I mean, it's huge. I mean, especially if you're a local-owned business, we want to help you. And the fact that something was to happen and you will no longer be able to rebuild your business is a huge asset. I mean,
yeah, I mean, you had to put cash back in, right? Because $50,000 is enough for maybe the tables in there.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe. I mean, because those are custom made in Mexico and shipped up to the U.S. and crazy things. And one of the things that surprised me with the family businesses was there's no employment practices liability on any of the policies. And then we had that neurovirus outbreak in Michigan.
Correct. Yes. And I mean, one of the restaurants that we wrote didn't even have any foodborne illness, and I mean that could definitely leave you on the street for a business.
Yeah, if you don't have any coverage for your foodborne or illness, then you're going to be out of pocket for any of the publicity and all the other things. So Eric, can you explain to viewers why insurance coverages can vary so greatly from agent to agent? Why is it that we can come in and find these gaps in coverage, but their current agents couldn't?
Absolutely. We're definitely relational. We're not transactional. The difference is transactional agents are just trying to get you in and out and get as many policies as possible and make as much money. We're about advising, looking over your policies in detail, finding the holes, and correcting it. I think Greg can add to that too. What do you have there, Greg?
Yeah, definitely. We were just able to quote my wife's business where she works out in Brighton, and her current policy, I won't tell you what company they're with, but
oh man,
I can if you want.
No. I should spare them.
It would be bad. It's a $850,000 building. It was covered at $700,000. They have 42 employees, all cubicles downstairs, and they had $45,000 in business personal property. $45,000.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have quoted how much it costs to build a cubicle, but it is outrageous.
Yeah, and build outs on those are a little more than what people anticipate for sure.
Yeah, and the other part of that is the building it's a split building. Half of it's in a lower level, and they had no water backup damage at all.
So
none.
So if their sewer pipe had clogged up, they would have been SOL.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, that really comes down to a lack of relationship. I mean, that agent clearly hadn't been out there and seen it, didn't talk to them about their business. He cared more about the sale probably than he did the actual proper coverage, which, I mean, we compare that to dating and marrying somebody, right? Are you going out to the bar and just trying to date people, or are you trying to establish a relationship that's long-term? If you're trying to establish a long-term relationship, you're going to do things that build trust, not erode trust. You're going to want to know as much about them as you can so that you can best serve them. And that's where the customer service and the follow-up and all that comes into play. So what are the most common policy gaps your business needs to avoid? I think, Greg, you had one out in the Brighton area, and there was something else with the building coverage on that one too.
It's the same building, actually.
Oh, okay. That's the same one.
Yeah, and we were talking about the water backup damage, and they've had 3 instances in the last 2 years where they had water in the building, just from simple things as plumbing backups. And they decided to self-insure and to pay it themselves so they didn't have to file the claim. But it's still a missing coverage that it could have been a lot worse. It could have been, instead of a couple $1,000s worth of damage, it could have damaged everything in that basement.
Oh, especially when the coverage only costs a few extra dollars a year. Over the current one, and that one of the things with that if you don't have enough limit on your building, most people don't know this, that many companies include the cost of debris removal in your building coverage. So, you said this, it was $850,000 is the proper amount of insurance, and $700,000 is how much coverage they had. And let's just say that their current coverage also has debris removal built into that $700,000. Well, I don't know if you've quoted out taking a building away from a location after it's been destroyed by a fire or tornado, but you're talking tens of thousands of dollars. If there's asbestos, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I was going to say we can get up in the 6 figures easy on those things, especially old buildings.
And depending on the municipality, certain municipalities have certain requirements. You might have to take all of the damaged construction materials to their landfill and pay their landfill prices, even though there's a cheaper landfill a county over, a city over.
Yeah, what do you tell us the difference between ACV and replacement costs?
Ooh,
and
you're
how
talking
many
insurance
times
ease.
we run into that.
Yeah, we sure do. So, we hear all the time from business owners, I just want to get what I put into it out. I just want to get my investment back. So typically that means they go with what's called actual cash value, which basically is market value. If you just want to kind of think of it that way, what could you sell it for? And they totally forget about the debris removal. So, you bought it for $150,000, but you're not going to get your $150,000 if you also have to spend $50,000 in debris removal, and that's included in the building limit. Some companies have it outside of the limit, so you have to look at your deck pages closely, and you have to make sure that your agent knows what he's talking about.
Where does replacement cost come in, and why is that important?
Yeah, so we insure 95% of our buildings at replacement cost. I mean, basically, if you don't want to insure it at replacement cost, then it's going to be a very long conversation, because there's things like functional replacement cost. So if you really only want to get your investment back, you can go functional replacement cost. It lowers your insurance costs a little bit, depending on the company you're with. And it also will make sure that there's enough limit there for the debris removal and to get your investment back into it. So that was a good question, Eric.
Absolutely.
So you got to look at your building coverage. If you own a building, that's an asset. You're looking at selling that thing at the end of the life cycle of the business, or you're going to want to move the business to another location and then use that to rent it. There's a million options for that building. You want to make sure you're protected. It's one of your biggest assets in your business. Another common policy gap that we see, we talked a little bit about earlier with Carlos's family's restaurants, is lack of employment practices liability. So I got some fun stats for you here. Did you know a private company is more likely to have an employment practices claim than a general liability claim or a property claim? So we just got done talking for 5 minutes about building coverage. You're more likely to get sued by one of your employees than you are to have a fire.
It's crazy to think about that, but it's true. I mean, these are all facts. And then 3 out of every 5 employers are sued by a former employee.
That's like 66%.
It's nuts.
65%.
No.
If you've ever fired an employee, you get hit with an employment-related lawsuit. And then the scary thing here is the coverage amounts. The average award for all plaintiff verdicts for employment practices lawsuits is $325,000. You think that might hurt your business if you don't have coverage?
Big time.
Yeah.
That will hurt.
And let's see. what's really interesting is that it's the small businesses that get hit with this. You think it's going to be General Motors or Ford or, some of the larger corporations. And it's
40% is under, I believe, 100 employees, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
40% of all employment practices claims are filed by companies with 100 or less employees.
That's wild.
So, what kind of things can we do to avoid a lawsuit, Greg? I know your background is in the church. You've had plenty of employees come through churches as volunteers and everything else. What are some of the things that people can do to protect themselves?
Yeah. I know from my background, we see employee handbooks and manuals, especially with my background, that's seriously lacking in that field. A lot of nonprofits, a lot of churches just on a whim, they just think everybody's a good person. They don't need this kind of stuff.
I do whatever they tell me to do.
Exactly. And that's as part of that manual is those official job descriptions that, I had a friend who I asked him, I said, so what's your job description? He's a pastor in a church. He's like, well, pretty much whatever needs to be done. Mm-hmm. Well, that covers a lot of things that you shouldn't be doing, including HR. He's hiring people, and if they don't have clear-cut job descriptions, clear-cut manual on hiring and firing, you don't like to think about that within a nonprofit, but it happens. They need it. Yeah. They need that coverage too. So
even churches get sued. And,
absolutely.
And charities, and that's right along with that is we talked about how most of these claims come out of terminations, right? Like most of the time you're not unhappy until you're not an employee anymore. So in those instances, that employee manual is going to talk about typically a termination process, right? It's going to have like we're talking about all our backgrounds. I came from government work. I was a police officer for 8 years. They had a discipline matrix where depending on the which policy you violated, it determined a number of points, and it was like this complex. But if you got in trouble, at least you kind of had an idea of what the process is going to be. Is it going to be a written, a verbal warning? Is it going to be time off, or is it termination? So you kind of at least know what you're getting into, and the expectation is set across the board. And it was all for us. It was our policies and procedures, our P&P. But
I think nowadays it's more important than ever in this society we live in, because everybody is so entitled that when they lose their job, unfortunately, they're like, well, this isn't fair.
It couldn't
be my fault. They want to go sue. Yeah.
It has to be somebody else's fault. It can't be mine.
And it happens on a regular basis, and people don't understand all the behind the scenes as a business owner, but this stuff happens on a daily basis. So.
Yep. Employees love you until they don't. So make sure, business owners, your takeaway from this, make sure you have at least $250,000 in employment practices liability.
What's a really important aspect that we're missing here? Probably the most important coverage on the planet.
Probably attorney fees, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking? I
mean, I was thinking cybersecurity.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I thought you were talking about employment practices. Yeah, cybersecurity. So this is what I would say is the most important. Absolutely. This is a policy that every single business owner listening must have. Cybersecurity insurance. Did you know a study by major credit card companies found that 85% of all data breaches occur at the small business level? So what do you
85%?
Yeah, but what do you typically hear, Carlos, from the restaurant owners?
Oh no, that's not that.
We're
that
not
would
big
never
enough.
happen to me.
Yeah, we're not big enough. Yeah,
we're not big enough.
We don't really do. We
barely use computers.
Yeah, there's no computers here. How could they steal data? Oh wait,
those chip readers do the job.
Yeah. There's already security built into it.
Until somebody hacks one.
Yeah, my POS vendor covers me for that. I hear that all the time. So my point of sale vendor, the people I rent my cash register from, they provide the coverage. Organized crime considers small businesses to be low risk, high reward, right? Because you want your stuff, you want your data back, you don't want to get hit with any sanctions, so you turn around and you pay them. So for them, they can get quick $10,000 out of you, or 10,000 Bitcoins, depending on how they hit you. Small business owners are popular targets to identify because they have a larger line of credit. Yeah. They have higher volume of transactions, like a restaurant. I mean, how many times do you swipe a card at a restaurant? Hundreds.
Hundreds.
And they have value. Typically smaller businesses have valuable computer networks. They're not going to have a server backup 100 miles away. It's all going to be right there on that machine that they run their business off of. So one thing that a lot of our clients don't know is it's actually illegal for business owners not to report and not to send notifications to those who are legally protected. Their legally protected personal information is breached. So Somebody hacks in, steals your information, and you don't let them know that it got stolen.
That's a violation.
Yep, the state or the federal government's going to come in and slap you some big fines. Some of them are literally tens of thousands of dollars a day past the notification time that they sign. So make sure that your policy has 4 coverage parts in your cyber liability. We see a ton of policies with just it's one that kind of blankets everything. And it's a real complex coverage that you really do need. So to all business owners out there listening, here's what I want you to do. Schedule a time to review your policy with an agent. Seriously, sit down with them.
With the Mardigian Agency.
Yeah, preferably with us.
We'll help you.
And that's who our special guests were today, the entire Mardigian Agency. So thank you for listening, and a big thank you to my guests for joining me today. Where can people connect with you guys?
You can find Eric Gestring on Facebook, Instagram.
Same here. You can find Carlos Vera on Facebook or Instagram.
Greg Hoggs at Facebook, Instagram.
Awesome. We'll see you next time on Be Insured. Have a great day.